What is up? What is up? I'm live. I am live right now. How are you all doing? I don't know if there's anyone here yet. We'll just chill a minute, get some people in the chat, then we'll get into everything we're gonna get into today. Then we'll get into everything we're gonna get. Oh, hello, Punk Dallas. How you doing, man? How you doing? More people will join. I've just gone live, so it'll take a minute, but we'll get some people in. We'll see the chat start popping off a little bit in a bit, hopefully. But yeah, there we go. Got 6 people watching now. So hopefully some more people coming. But yeah, today we're gonna be talking about a lot of things. We're gonna be talking about the Ubisoft drama. So if you have any questions, let me know in the chat, and we'll get talking about it. I think there's more to talk about for that. And then obviously after that, we're gonna talk about, or amongst that, we're gonna talk about just Assassin's Creed in general, like what games to play in 2026. Stuff that we like, stuff that we don't like. We're just gonna have a chill time. It'll be decent. It'll be decent. Obviously, if there's any conversation points you guys want to talk about in the chat, we can talk about that stuff as well. How we doing? God, my eyesight, man. I need to zoom in. I need to zoom in so I can see the chat better. There we go. Lucian. I read that as Duncan. What the hell? Lucian, how you doing? How we doing, Nads? How is everyone today on this beautiful Sunday? What day is it? Yeah, Sunday. On this beautiful Sunday. As I said, we're going to talk just Ubisoft, Assassin's Creed, stuff like that. I'm going to wait to get into it before a few more people come into chat. And when we've got that, when we've got a few more people watching, we'll get into it. One thing I do have, which I can show you, is for a bit of engagement, just so you guys have something interesting to look at other than my face. We can look at some gameplay here, and we can switch the gameplay up. I'm not actually playing it. It's just my footage that I use for videos of Assassin's Creed games. So obviously at the moment I'm about to be working on a Assassin's Creed Revelations video on the Exile Extra, and so I recorded my entire playthrough. There's me just being a buffoon trying to climb this building. And when we talk about different Assassin's Creed games, we can get relevant footage on screen. And I think that'll be a good little format we can go for. The reason I don't want to play while talking is because when I'm playing, I find it really hard to actually talk as well. Like, I'm really bad at multitasking while playing games. So you would just see me going like, what? So that's the plan. That's the plan. But for now, we'll stick to my face. The sticks. How you doing, man? How you doing? Hey mate, has something more happened? No, nothing more than what most people know. It's just we're gonna, just go over it a little bit more, gauge people's opinions, and sort of see where everyone's at, kind of, in today's stream. You know what I mean? And obviously, people that don't know, we can broadly sort of cover the whole situation as well. Because I do see a lot of comments of people saying, wait, so like what's actually happened? So I think it'd be good to just get in depth with it. Hopefully, don't get too negative. I'll try not to. I think we're going to try and keep the vibes high, even though we might be talking about, obviously, not the most positive situation with Ubisoft and Assassin's Creed. But, as I said, we'll try and keep the vibes high. Dan, how you doing, man? How you doing? Nice to see you. Still questioning why isn't the Celestial Pack and the Desert Scorpion Pack isn't a bundle or part of the Season Pass for Mirage. Bro, I haven't thought about Mirage like that for a long time. I don't know. Oh good, didn't think it would get worse. I mean, you say that. You say you don't think it can get worse. It can get worse. By the way, I will just say while I remember, if people watch the Podyssey, our podcast, you will probably already be aware of this, but my mic is okay. But when I'm surrounded by loads of technology, loads of like devices, it can get a bit of interference sometimes. So if you hear like some weird beeping, Let me know if it gets too much. It shouldn't. It should just be like a little bit every now and then. There's not really much I can do, you know. As long as it's far enough away from stuff, my mic, it should be fine. But if you hear like beep 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 beep, you'll every now and then, that's what it is. But hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully it's not doing it right now. I'm not gonna know because I can't hear it. Should be fine. I've made it sound worse than it is. Um, it can, yeah, yeah. Okay. Um, what do you guys want to talk about first? Should we talk about Ubisoft situation as a whole? Sort of get into that. Do you guys have any thoughts about that that you want me to bring up, or we can talk about, or should we first talk about specific Assassin's Creed games and playing them in 2026? Because I thought it would be good to talk about that in stream format, because obviously recently I've been playing the Ezio collection and I've been making videos of how they come across to me in 2026. Has my opinion changed? Are they just as fun as they used to be? That sort of thing. So I thought maybe we could take that sort of aspect, bring it into a stream, so I can talk about it from my point of view and you guys can also weigh in as well. For example, AC Unity. Do you guys enjoy it as much as you enjoyed it back in the day? Or is it the other way around? Do you enjoy it less now? We can talk about that sort of thing and get into gameplay, everything like that. So let me know what you guys want to do first. I could do a poll. Maybe I could do a poll. How does Ubisoft have any investors left? I don't know. I don't know. I'm sure it's not got as many as they used to have. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll do a poll. As long as Jade is being put on hold and not cancelled, I'm happy. Yeah, I mean, they're not saying anything about that, and it is mostly it's a Tencent game rather than a Ubisoft game, really. Because it's being developed, I believe, by Level Infinite. I think that's what they're called. So, which is basically like a subsidiary developer to Tencent. So whether they actually are gonna be under the umbrella of all the Ubisoft titles, where they could delay them or cancel them, I'm not sure. I think it will be more different management for that, which is actually a good sign because it means they're not in the troubles and under the mismanagement of Yves Guillemot. They're under, AC Jade is under the management of somebody in Tencent, some Chinese developer, and whether that they're any better, I don't know. Right, I'm gonna make the poll. Do you know what? We could always talk about AC Jade. What I'm gonna say is what? Oh God, not capitals. What? First topic? Question mark. First topic, and then I'm gonna put Ubi slop or AC in 2026, and that can AC in 2026 could cover AC Jade, for example, or the future of Assassin's Creed. Maybe not the future of Assassin's Creed, but you know what I mean, because you get the idea. I'm gonna do a poll. There we go. You guys can vote now. I think I've never done a poll before, so just vote what we want to talk about first. Poll would be easier, yeah. AC in 2026 has 100%. That's probably because it's the first voter. How do I see the other? How do I see this? Oh, click it. There we go. I'll give it a minute or two. What's everybody been up to today? Are we chilling on the weekend? Are we working? Are we studying? Are we playing games? Do you think Ubisoft will stop involving politics in their game? It depends what you define as that. Because Assassin's Creed 1 in 2007 was a very political game. The whole theming of the story revolved around the philosophy of two different parties, if you will, striving for the same idea or goal, but having two very different ideologies. And one could say that's a very political. So it depends what you define as that. What's the poll? I was 50-50 now. It's 50-50. Ubisoft or Ubislop topic 50%. We got 18 2026 50%. I'll leave it up for another minute longer because I can end it on 50%. So get your votes in now if you haven't already. We've got, to be fair, I think we've got all the votes we can get right now. 50-50, brilliant. Okay, what we'll do is, we'll do one more poll. We're going to do one more poll. Oh, it's changed. It's changed. It's changed. We have 60% Ubisoft and then 40% AC in 2026. All right, I'm going to count down from 5. If it doesn't change, we'll do that. We'll do Ubisoft topic first. All right, get your votes in right now. Oh, it's 50-50 again. Oh, 57-43. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, Ubisoft. Ubisoft is the topic to start with. You might have to be the casting vote. Yeah, well, true. Anyway, that's what we got. Hi, Exile, how's it going? Stefan, how you doing, man? Yeah, I'm doing very well, thanks. I'm doing very well. We are about to talk about Ubisoft situation, the Ubisoft drama in 2026. Just giving buzzwords right now. But yeah, we're going to cover the whole situation broadly, because there are people that just don't know. You know, there are a lot of people that, you know, they see the headlines, they see the videos, but maybe they haven't been tuned in with it, which is fair enough. So we're going to just cover it broadly. And then after that, we're going to sort of have a think about what this actually means. Like, is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? What does it mean for Assassin's Creed in general? And then, well, I mean, obviously other games as well. So yeah, we'll talk about that. And then, so if I don't read chat for a while, it's because I'm going off on one, I'm just talking, but I will refer to chat, you know, when we get a breather here and there, because I definitely need a breather. Let me take a sip. Okay. So what happened with the Ubisoft situation? So it was, I mean, the beginning of the year 2026, we didn't really hear anything. So we thought we would be getting the Black Flag remake in March, April. We thought, hey, who knows, maybe ACJ this year. Then we thought we'd be getting a Prince of Persia remake. I even made a video, like not even a month ago now, where I said we might be getting the Prince of Persia remake in a week, according to rumors. You know, it was actually ramping up to be, I don't know about a solid year for Ubisoft, but it was ramping up to be a year of some sort of substance for Ubisoft games. And then mid-January, we got hit with big headlines. You know, Ubisoft layoffs. You know, they've shut down multiple studios. They've obviously, by doing that, let go a ton of employees, and they're basically downsizing. They're restructuring how they work with the company, you know, how they run things. And what they're doing is they're basically getting rid of a lot of things they don't think they need. Now, the reason they're doing that, because again, a lot of people haven't really talked about why they're doing it. They're just saying, this is what they've done. So the reason why they're doing that is because we all know how the Ubisoft stocks are going. We all know how their sales are going. They're losing. They've lost a ton of money. And even though they've made a deal with Tencent, which gave them a big cash injection because they gave them a big portion of their company or shares, they're even still, they're still on the downward slope. They're still suffering. Their games aren't selling like they should be. And so the reason they're doing it is they're cutting costs. They're saying, right, well, we could do without this studio, so we'll get rid of them. Or we could do with Ubisoft Bordeaux, for example, to just be a technical support studio instead of a mainline developer for AC games. And that'll save us costs because we don't have to put as many, you know, business assets into them, hire as many people. We'll just keep that as a small team. And then, obviously, when it comes to their deal with Tencent, they can throw all their proverbial eggs into the Tencent Vantage Studios basket, which is a new studio created by Tencent and Ubisoft that basically took Assassin's Creed, I believe Far Cry, and basically their popular IPs over to more of a Tencent-controlled area where they can fully focus on that series and just basically dive in with it. And, you know, on paper, it means the quality will get better, there's going to be more focus, and they're going to be more quote-unquote profitable for Ubisoft. Obviously, time will tell. So that's kind of why they've done things. They've just taken a look at the company on paper and they've said, right, get rid of this, get rid of this, get rid of this, move things over here. And this will mean we'll make X amount of money. We'll save on this. There'll be less of a loss. You know, that's the idea. Again, from a business standpoint, I guess it makes sense when you are in the gutter. You know, it makes sense. However, you've got to look at what the repercussions of doing this, and you've got to look at the reason why they have to do this in the first place. Obviously, the repercussions immediately is that a lot of people that work for the company lose their jobs. You know, a lot of us have been in that situation where a company has gone with a different direction, and to no detriment, well, to no negative point of your own, you might lose your job. I've had that happen to me. It sucks. It's nothing you've done, nothing you can control. It's just what happens. That being said, you have to look at why they're doing this. Now, they're doing this and they're losing money because of their own decisions. Now, you got to look at the CEO, Yves Guillemot. He has mismanaged Ubisoft for a lot of years now. You know, you've got to look at the Ubisoft formula of games. They've always kind of had a very similar formula, even back in, you know, the 2010s, before it got to be the Ubisoft we know today. Early 2000s, Ubisoft were very innovative. They tried new things. They pushed the boat out on new mechanics. You know, that's how we got games like the Prince of Persia with the parkour it had. And then upgrades on that with like the Assassin's Creed parkour mechanics. Ubisoft pretty much invented the current open world formula that we have in video games. You know, Ubisoft Towers. You go, you synchronize your viewpoint, you unlock parts of the map. That's used in so many games now, even to the point where Zelda, The Legend of Zelda, has used it to an extent. They were pioneers. And even though they were pioneers, though, they did have a very much, you know, Ubisoft stamp of not of approval, but like of aesthetics. You know, you could tell when a Ubisoft game, you could tell when you were playing a Ubisoft game. And I think, again, less so in the early 2000s, but as it got to the sort of 2010s, you could definitely see that. As much as we love the older Assassin's Creed games, and still do, they were very similar in gameplay formula. And look at the Far Cry games, all very similar. Ubisoft are very good at seeing what works and then just sticking on it and like milking it basically until people get bored of it. And that's kind of what they did. Then they had their hard reset with Assassin's Creed, end of 2016, between 2014 and 2016, really, when, you know, Unity just absolutely failed. It had a failed launch, it had a really buggy release, and a lot of the mainstream were arguing that one of the reasons it failed is because it's getting too generic, the same formula over and over. People are getting bored, and to be fair, the mainstream probably were. So they revamped, they spent more time developing, they released Origins, which was a new take on Assassin's Creed, and at the time it really worked. The thing is, Ubisoft saw that it worked, and again, they did their classic, where they just milk that same thing over and over and over. And as they did it, they released a game like Odyssey. You know, say what you will about Odyssey. If you like Odyssey, that's fair enough. But when you look at what it comes down to, it's a very, very large open world with a lot of disjointed storylines and quests that struggle to feed into one another. And a lot of the writing was sacrificed in Odyssey. You know, you look at a heavy-hitting story, not perfect at all, but a heavy-hitting, sort of emotional, investing stories that Origins had even. And then you look at Odyssey, which is just, the tone is completely different. I don't personally think the tone matches the series. That's a whole other conversation. But another thing Odyssey did was it really focused in on microtransactions. You know, it had the I believe it's called the Anima Store or something like that. And you could buy time savers, XP boosters, and Ubisoft deliberately made level gating a lot more less organic, so that you would go and buy these XP boosters to at least incentivize you to do that. Anyway, without going too much in deep on Odyssey, years pass by. They drill down the same formula. They basically reskin the same Assassin's Creed game, same Ubisoft game over and over. Even Avatar Frontiers of Pandora is a very similar style of game. Star Wars Outlaws, same issue there. And people start to get bored of it. People start to clock on to the fact that this is just the same game every time. This is the same game over and over. This Star Wars Outlaws is just like Frontiers of Pandora, and it's the same as AC Shadows, and I'm getting bored of it. People are clocking on to the fact that There's not as much substance to these games that a lot of other AAA games releasing around the same time have. You know, look at a release like Baldur's Gate 3. Years development. You know, it comes out to critical acclaim. Even look at smaller titles like Expedition 33, made by an indie developer team from a few ex-devs from Ubisoft. You look at these really quality games that people appreciate, it respects the consumer, it gives you a good story, good content, and then people are comparing that to Ubisoft games, and they're like, it's just not the same. This is the sort of game that I want to play, and this is the sort of game Ubisoft are giving me. It forces me to go into the microtransaction store, or at least heavily incentivizing it. They're giving these open worlds with not much substance within them, and we can, you know, go in depth on what I mean by that if anyone wants me to, and we can do that later. And I think that's a big reason why the sales started to decline. People started to put less money into Ubisoft as a consumer, and they're starting to suffer a lot more. Again, it's being short-sighted. It's seeing where their success is, and instead of trying to innovate on that and actually make something for the consumer or for the consumer to enjoy, they're short-sighted. They say, well, that did well, that's going to make a lot of money in the short term, so we're going to drill home on that, and we're going to make a game for the consumer to pay for and to keep giving money to. We're going to make a live service, a subscription model, almost in a way, again, rather than a game for the consumer to actually play and enjoy. And I think it's catching up with them now. I mean, it's got to be something, right? And they're losing a lot of money quick. Will Tencent... Well, we'll get on to more. That's kind of, in my opinion, a lot of the reasons why they're doing badly. Another big reason that can't really be ignored is, and I'm sure this was definitely a big factor to Ubisoft losing a lot of investors, at least at the time, is in 2021, there was a load of SA allegations within Ubisoft. People came out to say that they were sexually harassed within the workplace. And when it was outed, Yves Guillemot, the CEO, you know, he gave generic PR statements, but in my opinion, he didn't really actually say much of substance, and it didn't seem, from what we've seen online with the whole discourse, that much was really changed. Some of the employees that were, what's the opposite word of victim? Perpetrators, I don't know. Was supposedly arrested, which is good, but supposedly, I'm going to say again to cover myself here, you know, legally, from what I've read, it seems that a lot of, or at least some of the perpetrators, if you will, were not fired. They were just quietly moved around the company, basically, in other words, protected by Yves Guillemot. That's not a good thing to do in any situation. You don't protect somebody that does something like that. Obviously, yeah, I'm sure they lost a lot of investors around that time, because that is not the type of company you want to be invested in, or you want to think about investing in when you read that sort of thing when it comes out. Obviously, unfortunately, that situation kind of died down with not much discourse. I'm not saying people ignored it, but at the time, a lot of people didn't really talk about it. And whether much change was made, we don't know. Like, we genuinely don't really know. So, to round things off here, before we get into it a bit deeper, read the chat a bit more, employees are not happy with Ubisoft. They're really not. There's a lot of, they're striking at the moment. Ubisoft employees and studios under the umbrella of Ubisoft are literally walking out. They're striking. They're saying, we will not go back to work until Yves Guillemot makes real proper changes that actually mean something, rather than just coming out and saying, we value you, we appreciate you, when they don't actually feel like that is true at all. They most recently had what they call a town hall, which I think is more of just like, you know, a meeting, a big conference, probably on Zoom, where there's a load of people, you know, spokespeople for the employees. There's Yves Guillemot on the call. There's other executives, I suppose. I don't know. I'm just speculating on how that works. And they supposedly talked their grievances to him. And Ubisoft employees have now come out to say that he didn't really give them any answers. He just gave them the classic PR speech once again. and they kind of went in circles. He kind of obfuscated the point, and it was a bit pointless. So that's where we're at. Validly, people are striking, walking out as they should. You know, they got to protect their livelihoods. They could lose their job at any minute. They don't know. Just another example is when Ubisoft cancelled the Black Flag, not the Black Flag remake. That's not cancelled, supposedly. My bad. The Prince of Persia remake. When they cancelled that, you know, one of the voice actors made a video. She didn't outright say it was the Prince of Persia remake, but it's implied, and we all kind of know. She said the game was cancelled. 1 week before that, she was doing promo videos for the release. She was really excited. This was like her big break. They cancelled the game and they didn't even tell her. They didn't let her know it was gonna happen. It just got cancelled, and somebody else had to tell her. And she's like, "What do you mean?" And then she realized that it'd been cancelled. You know what I mean? The miscommunication, the lack of clarity, the uncaring nature of Ubisoft is awful, to be honest. So yeah, Ubisoft are restructuring the company, but in my opinion, they need to restructure it in a completely different way. We can all call for Yves Guillemot to step down, but that's never gonna happen. Why would he step down? You know, he is his family run he runs Ubisoft with his brothers. You know, it's all a big family company. So just due to that fact, nobody's going to pressure him to step down. He's not going to step down. Now, lastly, before I go back to chat, oh yeah, the guy Punk just said in chat about the voice actress. There we go. Yeah. So lastly, before I start reading chat and we get your guys' thoughts, and obviously questions. Well, what was I? Oh fuck! I lost my train of thought. What was I saying? There was one more point. There was one more point. Oh no. Oh, maybe I'll just read chat for a minute. If I remember, I'll get back to it. It's something about Yves Guillemot. Give me a minute. Give me a sec. Something about him stepping down, not stepping down. Oh, I know what it is. So, yeah, he's not going to step down. There's no way. None of his family is going to pressure him to step down as much as the employees do. If there's no power over him to do that, it seems he's not going to do that. If he was going to, he would have done it a long time ago. He would have ditched the company when it was in the gutter. He's not done that. So, supposedly, and now this is, I guess we can say this is speculation because we've read this from supposed Ubisoft employees, but there's nothing obviously official, so we have to take it with a grain of salt. But supposedly, there's going to be, and by the way, this comes from Jonathan on his Twitter account. He spoke with somebody who worked at Ubisoft, again, supposedly, and this person said that they're basically going to unleash a ton of dirt on Yves Guillemot. Like, they've built up a big profile of everything terrible he's done, and they're going to release it to the world to basically disgrace him. Who knows what that's going to be? If it's anything, you can't just show us games that were bugged because this classic Ubisoft. Excuse me, that's not going to do anything. So you do have to question, like, what have they got on him? Something to do with 2021 allegations? Potentially. Dare I say likely? We'll see. Anyway, so that's kind of the situation. Ubisofts are kind of in shambles right now. Will they recover? Maybe. I think, and this is my opinion, but it also comes from my friend Willis Makes Movies, who I do the Podyssey and AC podcast with. You know, he brought this to light, which I definitely agreed with. It seems likely that in a few years, or maybe even this year, Tencent might just buy Ubisoft outright. If they do continue to just dwindle and dwindle, it might get to the point where they give up the ghost, you know, they're like, there's not much we can even do at this point. Let's just, well, yeah, fine, we'll just sell everything to you, all our assets, the company itself. And to be honest, not having the Guillemot family control over the company would be a good thing. However, do you guys know what Tencent are like? Is it just like one villain handing a company to another villain? I don't know. I don't know how bad Tencent would really be. They could even be worse when it comes to making, at least when it comes to game development, because they have a track record when it comes to actually Tencent controlled companies of making games just for microtransactions, not actually having really any story to them, very much disrespect the consumer type of games, mobile games. Tencent invest in a lot of other decent game developers. They've invested in Larian for Baldur's Gate 3, and Baldur's Gate 3, in my opinion, and to a lot of people's opinion, is one of the best games of all time. So they do invest in decent games, but as a developer themselves, is shaky. It is shaky. I do recommend watching Tencent, the company that owns everything or something like that, is on YouTube. Check it out. It explains Tencent, how it came about, how it basically dominates entertainment media in China. It's very interesting. I'm going to read chat now. Okay. I think Ubisoft had too many eggs in one basket, says Dan. Lots of studios working on different games, not just including AC, and that hurt their game development creatively. I agree with that. I do agree. I think, you look at Assassin's Creed games when they were purely developed by Ubisoft Montreal. Yeah, sure, they were smaller games. Games took less money and less time to make, in the early 2010s. But even regardless, there was much more of a focus and vision on where the Assassin's Creed series was going. Look at the Ezio collection, AC2 to Revelations, even AC3. There's a cohesive story there. They came out in quick succession, and you could be invested a lot easier as the player. You thought, I just finished Revelations. Desmond's just woken up. He's going to this temple he's just got wind of. And then you play the next game and you go straight from that. There was narrative cohesion. Yeah, I do agree that once they started giving big Assassin's Creed games to different developers that probably have no communication with the other, you do start to lose a focus. Perfect example, Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Darby McDevitt, the narrative director, basically wrote a decent modern day story, and he set it up in a way that could be continued, that could basically pass the torch to Ubisoft Quebec and whoever the narrative director is there to continue that story. He set it up very nicely. Ubisoft Quebec didn't do anything with that. They said, we have characters that are so complex and interesting that we found there wasn't really a space to continue the modern day with Basim, for example. So they shut down that whole setup. That's what happens when you have two companies with two different creative visions, because we do know Ubisoft Quebec and Ubisoft Montreal have vastly different creative visions and where they want to take an Assassin's Creed game. Montreal are very much, and you can argue to what extent, but you look at Valhalla, at the end of the day, whatever you say about it, it was an Assassin's Creed game narratively. Whether it deviated for that in moments, which it did, you can argue. But when you look at actually what happens, Abel's story and Basim's story and Sigurd's story, that's an Assassin's Creed story when it comes to theming and the type of characters they are. That's the type of game Montreal pretty much makes. Quebec don't do that. They think, right, we love warriors in history. We want to take these characters, and we don't really want to do too much with them. We just want them to fight enemies, get cool gear and loot. We basically use them as the conduit to do that. And we're going to write some cool side quests with like comedy, and that's their vibe. It's much more lighthearted, if you will. Syndicate's another example of that. And it's fine, that's your prerogative to make that type of game, right? It appeals to someone, to a lot of people. But it's two completely different creative ideas that come one after the other in Assassin's Creed. And then you get this layer of disconnect. I don't know if layer is the right word, but you get, you do get a feeling of disconnect. Like, whoa, this game is so different from the last one. And the story has no cohesion. There's no overlap there. It's just so different. So yes, I agree with you, Dan, in my long-winded response. What I might do, should I throw up the gameplay? Look at that. Should I do that? Some AC Revelations. I've got a lot of Assassin's Creed gameplay, so if you guys want me to show gameplay for a specific AC game, fine, let's do it. But yeah, actually, do you know what? No, I'll leave it there for now. But if you guys want to talk about Ubisoft anymore, then I'll take the gameplay off just for the sake of not making things feel too different. And then when we get to AC games in 2026, we'll throw up the gameplay. But I'll leave it on there for now. Games or Game 44 says AC Shadows is good though. Yeah, fair enough, fair enough. Um, that's the thing though. You can say, that doesn't just because Ubisoft are quote unquote going down the gutter, filling the game's microtransactions, the talking points we've talked about today, doesn't mean there is no appeal in these games. I'm not saying that at all. Um, you know, People still bought them. People still bought these games. People still played them. There's a lot of people that still enjoyed them. I'm just saying if you genuinely, like, with an analytical mind, take a look at their online store and then you take a look at the level system, you cannot deny that these games are made in a way to incentivize you to go to the store. Um, and I think thing about another point we haven't really talked about. I'm going to go off the gameplay just so we can finish this topic. Another big point. I'm just checking I'm still live. Actually, it's always good to check. And I think thing about another we're all good. We're all good. Okay. Another big point is the size of Ubisoft games. They're massive. They are. I mean, you got outliers like Mirage, but in general, Ubisoft games are bigger than they need to be. Now, there's nothing wrong with having a massive open world, that's gonna sink. You're gonna sink hundreds of hours into. There's nothing wrong with that at all. My favorite game of all time is Baldur's Gate 3. It's like, for a first time playthrough, it's about 170 hours if you try and do everything. A second playthrough when you kind of know where everything is, or to an extent, is about 150 hours. It's a long game. But I think the issue with a game like Ubisoft's games from Ubisoft is why does it need to be this big? I think what content you actually get of substance is actually not comparable to the open world. Look at look at Shadows, I guess, because obviously, we got people saying Shadows is good, which again, I'm not going to dispute that. I don't personally like it, but people like it, and that's fair enough. It's got a fairly decent stealth system, gameplay feels fairly refined. If you're not too interested in the, a more intricate parkour system, you just want to get from point A to point B in an easy way. The parkour systems, again, it's not bugged. It's fair. It's fine. It's okay. It's got cool flips. I think the combat's quite hack and slash, and I think it's better when it comes to bosses, but when you're just killing enemies out in the world, I feel like there's not much skill included. But as a system in of itself, it's not the worst combat system. So you know what I mean? Like there is appeal. But when you actually look at the content, you look at really the length of the story, and you look at the gameplay mechanics, you look at the characters, and you look at what you're actually in the world to do. The world is a bit too big. It is needlessly big for that. It can a smaller world can facilitate exactly the same stuff. But I think Ubisoft create these worlds to be a lot bigger than they need to be because they need to, I'm trying to think of the right word here. Exaggerate is not the word, I guess. Maybe it is. Basically, they need to exaggerate game time because the longer you play a game, on paper, the more hours they have played from players, and the better it looks to investors. Investors can say, oh wow, people played for 100 hours each on average. That's really good. We're going to invest in you. We're going to give you our money. And again, it's the Ubisoft short-sightedness. Yeah, it works for a while, but it's artificially inflated numbers, The only reason everybody played for 100 hours is because, think about a game like Odyssey. You do, again, if you love Odyssey, that's fair enough. There's stuff to love in that game. But you cannot deny a lot of objectives on the map will require you to get into the Adrestia, your ship, and sail on your ship across the sea, where you might not actually run into many enemies or points of interest. You might just sail on the sea in a straight line for 10, 15, maybe even longer minutes. I've played the game. I've got 90 hours in the game. I know it. Played it. And that doesn't need to be the case. Obviously, at a certain point, you can fast travel. But when you're trying to find these locations for the first time, you're going through the world, it doesn't need to be this big. And again, there's a reason I have 90 hours in that game, is because I had to. I had no choice. And I literally remember watching YouTube videos on my phone, barely even looking at the screen, just letting my eyes glaze over while I was, crossing the world. Um, if that wasn't the case, if the world wasn't artificially inflated to artificially inflate game time, I probably would have had 30 hours in it. And to some people, that's not long enough. But if I'm going to put 90 hours into something, I want it to be, I want all of those hours to be having been worth my time, worth my while, and I having actually been doing something of interest during those 90 hours. I reckon 15 to 20 hours of my playthrough in that game were spent just running or sailing or galloping, trying to get to my next point of interest, my next quest or side quest or whatever. Anyway, what I'm saying is, I think that's another big reason why Ubisoft games are starting to not sell as good as they were, because people have an expectation now when it comes to Assassin's Creed games or Ubisoft games. They say, oh, it's going to be massive, isn't it? It's going to be so big. It's like, do I want to put my time into that? And, when I could be putting my time into something where I might get more out of it, such as Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, Baldur's Gate 3, or maybe a smaller title like Expedition 33. You know what I mean? I think it's been a big amalgamation of the way Ubisoft design their games and, for the consumer. Oh, sorry, not for the consumer, for the investor rather than the consumer. And the way they've mismanaged their own company, behind the scenes. I think it's just a big mix to the reason of why Ubisoft are going down the chute the way they are right now. So that's the situation. That's my opinion on it. Feel free to disagree or agree. Let me know in the chat. And now I'm back to chat and I will read what you're saying. I'd like to see Ubisoft. We're going to be a bit more chill now, by the way. I'm going to read your chat. We'll sort of talk between each other now before we get into other points. And this is kind of the Ubisoft topic I wanted to talk about done now. Again, we can talk about it more, but I kind of said everything that I wanted to say about it. Unless you have more questions. I'd like to see Ubisoft to support the Switch 2 more. Yeah, Switch 2 sold 18 million already, so I think the essential to get their games on the hottest platform regardless. Yeah, I mean Shadows is on Switch 2, right? I believe so. I believe it is. I don't have a Switch 2. I had a Switch a few years back, and then I sold it. I just didn't really play many games on it. I got like 100 hours in Breath of the Wild during COVID, and then I didn't really use it again. But yeah, no, you're right. The Switch 2 is popular. See, I think, to be honest, more ports to Switch 2 for Ubisoft probably would be a good idea right now. Supposing... I'm not saying the right words right now. What does that even mean? Supposing. You obviously have to consider how expensive it would be to make more Ubisoft ports to Switch 2, for example, to maybe upscale the graphics a little bit, or downscale, depending on what game you're releasing for it, porting to it. But you'd think that would be a good way to make more money quickly, and that's what they need right now. They need quick injections of money. Again, I don't really support Ubisoft. I don't really want to give them my money. But I mean, just from their point of view, that's what they need. And where the fuck is Far Cry 7? I don't know, to be honest. I need to play like the Far Cry games. I never really got into them. Not to say I wouldn't like them. I really liked the look of Far Cry 3 when I was younger. And I did play it. I just didn't play much of it. So maybe I should give Far Cry 3 a go. Dallas says, this might be too vague of a question. Is putting too many gameplay mechanics into one game and making the same game multiple times kind of a desperate attempt to recuperate funds in an everyone market? Well, I mean, I suppose that is another way of saying what I said, kind of doing what Ubisoft are doing. That is it. That's another point. That's another point. Ubisoft try and make games now that will appeal to as many people as possible. But when you do that, you obviously have to sacrifice RPG elements. If you're too hardcore, you're not going to appeal to everyone. They have to sacrifice certain story tropes and character traits because they don't want to have a character that might not appeal to a certain person. So in turn, everything gets dumbed down, watered down. And you guys have probably heard so many people say this, but that's because it's true. You know, in my opinion, feel free to disagree, but in my opinion, Naoe and Yasuke, for example, had basically no personality traits, no real character to them. And I just think, so you've watered that down to appeal to as many people as possible. Again, same with gameplay mechanics. So, I mean, stealth system was alright. But again, they had to make a tank character so that they could appeal to everyone. And in turn, you get less focus on the actual substance. You know? And again, they're really good at taking their formula that they now have. Like, again, as much as we can complain about the formula of Ubisoft games, the modern formula, Ubisoft are good at whipping them up. They can whip them up so quick. You know, and they're masters of that. They're savants when it comes to their Ubisoft formula. It's just a shame it's not very good. If it was good, it'd be great. Does smaller game mean niche market? I don't think so. I don't. It depends what you define as niche, though. You know, objectively, the definition of niche is, you know, a small group of people, right? A small group of people that are inclined to appreciate a certain thing. But when it comes to gameplay or games, it's not a bad thing, you know? Think about how big Assassin's Creed was back in the day. It was a sort of niche that made it, you know, it was a big niche of gamers. I just remember when I was younger and I was, you know, when I was a little kid and the Ezio trilogy were the games that were, you know, current. And I remember when Revelations was ramping up to release, they had, you know, this obviously the classic CG trailer that's at the start of the game. They had a variation of that on TV, like a shortened version, a TV spot version that was only probably like, what, 20 seconds. But it had Ezio doing his voiceover, you know, Claudia, and he's doing all the fighting. It was so sick. And they had this other song in the background, and it was really cool. And then Ezio, he puts his hood up at the end, and it would say AC Revelations, and it would have the date it's coming out. And I used to love when that advert would come on because I loved Assassin's Creed. That was a very niche game at the time. It was a trailer to promote the game focused on a man in a hood that had got to a point where it was a story already, you know, 3 games in. Again, I suppose that's a game that's appealing to a very niche community. People that have played the other two, pretty much, and sneaky guys with hoods that go around stabbing and stuff like that. Sneaky Italian men, you know? It wasn't a game that just looks like generic warrior that anyone could be like, oh, I'll give it a go. Yet, those games were so big, you know? Of course they were. There's a reason we still have them today. They were so big. So it depends how you see, if you see niche as a positive or a negative. Again, there is such a thing as being way too niche to the point where you lose an audience or the audience can never get big enough to actually profit, you know? The only example I have for myself is obviously my YouTube videos, and that is nothing to do with game development, so I'm sure it's very different. But what I can do is apply some experience, and maybe we can sort of envision that for a game as well. Now, what I'm saying is, if I made a video or a YouTube channel, well, I mean, an Assassin's Creed YouTube channel, it's big enough of a niche community on YouTube to garner like a YouTube career out of. But you're never gonna reach the mainstream heights as if you were like KSI, you know, somebody like that who is obviously just a generic, you know, entertainment creator who is, what's he got, like 20 million subs? I don't think there could ever be a Assassin's Creed YouTube channel with 20 million subs that brings in 10 million views a video. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not that big, but it's still big enough for decent success. And I feel like the same thing happens with games, you know, but Ubisoft want that 20 million subscriber channel. If you know, in that sort of example. They want their games to be that. They want the KSI of video games every single game. But in turn, they release these games that are just not really appealing to anyone because they're like, oh, this is, I played it for a few hours. Oh, there wasn't much to it. I moved on. Do you know what I mean? Whereas if you focused on a bit more of a niche community, you might be more successful because that niche community of gamers really likes that game. They come back to it time and time again. They scream its praises or whatever. So that's my thoughts. Give Far Cry 5 a shot. Love that game. Yeah, why not? Why not? I don't know even which is which. I know Far Cry 3 is like the tropical island, and I know Far Cry 4 is like mountainous, right? That's all I know. Could Ubisoft make an Ezio style game again? They've used the Origin style gameplay for so long. Well, what do you mean by that? Oh, I'll read the other chat you've put as well. Assassin's Creed used to be cool. Back then, you could say you like it and everyone would agree. Nowadays, it's a bit embarrassing to say you like it. No, that's the thing. It kind of is. Like, even for me, right? I've been at, when I started, or when I'd been at my job, aside from YouTube that I've been at for a while, when I was new and I started getting to know people and they said like, oh, what's your other job? What do you do? I was like, oh, I don't really like to say, oh, I do YouTube or anything unless somebody asks me. It just invites more questions than it's worth. But I got to know certain people to a point where I was like, oh, I don't mind telling them, and I told them about YouTube, and then they were like, what videos do you do? And I was like, oh, do I want to say Assassin's Creed? And then as soon as I said Assassin's Creed, I had to say, but like the good ones, and I sort of, I'm not really a big fan of the newer ones, but I felt like I had to explain myself because I was like, oh my god, what if they think I like the newer ones? Which there's nothing wrong with, obviously. But it's just it's just there's a weird, it's just too much. But what was your question? Could Ubisoft make an Ezio style game again? Right, while I answer this question, this is where I can throw up my gameplay. Oh yeah, here we are, AC Revelations. Give it a minute. I can't skip it along, I don't think, or maybe I can. No, I can't. I'm gonna start climbing like an idiot again. Okay. I mean, they did, didn't they? They did make. Oh, Yerba, how you doing, man? Nice to see you. Nice to see you. Ubisoft did do an Ezio style game with Mirage. Obviously, I think I do need to replay the game to give my updated thoughts, but from the thoughts I have from when I played the game at the time, Mirage was a game that, yes, sort of mimicked a lot of aspects of Assassin's Creed, classic AC, but it did kind of lack a lot in that department. And also, gameplay-wise, it was still the RPG, engine and gameplay. It felt the same as the RPG games, They kind of repurposed it. So I guess actually thinking about, could Ubisoft make a bespoke Assassin's Creed game, that is, the gameplay's different, the engine maybe is a bit different, or at least the engine's repurposed, not like Mirage, but in a way that actually feels like an older Assassin's Creed game. There's new gameplay mechanics. Could they do that? I think they should. I definitely think they should. Will they do it? I don't know. I mean, when it comes to Assassin's Creed Hexe, which we can talk about if you guys want, Ubisoft has said this is going to be a more linear style Assassin's Creed game, and it's not going to be a big RPG. It's not even going to be an RPG, apparently. So then that begs the question, well, they're going to put, they're going to make that game whatever it's going to be. So are they going to make that game a bit like an older AC game when it comes to gameplay? I mean, I doubt it, but I don't know. I think they should. I think they could, but I don't know if they will. I wouldn't mind talking about Hexe for a bit, actually, if you guys want to talk about Hexe. Because it's very interesting at the point we are now. And I think where Ubisoft are at right now could definitely affect how we perceive Hexe, how the game releases, if any changes are made to development. It was apparently meant to be coming at the end of this year. But obviously, with the multiple delays and cancellations within Ubisoft with their restructuring, they've pushed this on to realistically probably like the end of 2027. I don't think we're getting that game any sooner than that. Which does give us a slight window to get the Black Flag remake at the end of 2026 rather than the beginning of 2027. I don't know. But anyway, it will be interesting to see how Hexe turns out, since it's been pushed back. Will they... See, it could go one of either two ways with Hexe. They could see what we've just been talking about and say, not literally see us, but you know what I mean, the general conversation, and think that actually we should be appealing to the more niche Assassin's Creed community that actually started this whole thing. We should be focusing on that. We should actually make a good Assassin's Creed game that hits all the points that people want. Because at this point, what have we got to lose? We're failing on making these big mainstream games. People like them, they sell a lot, but they're not selling enough. They're not making enough money. So maybe it is like a stab in the dark. It's like all right. No Assassin's Creed pun intended, by the way. It's like, okay, what have we got to lose? We're failing anyway. Why don't we make an AC game like AC2? I don't know. And maybe that's what they're going to do with Hexe. Again, we do know it's going to be a linear game that comes from the horse's mouth themselves, Ubisoft. They said it's going to be a more linear, smaller focused game. So, yeah, maybe. At the same time, again, you've got to think of the short-sightedness of Ubisoft. They only seem to do what does well in the said moment, and they struggle to push the boat out on much else. So I wouldn't be surprised if they think, no, look, we've got to keep doing what we're doing. We're on the brink of failure. We're going to make this a little bit bigger than we once intended. We're going to still add these RPG elements. We're going to still make it, broadly palatable for as many people as we can. In turn, it makes it disgusting for many people. No, that's an exaggeration. I think when you try and make a game or any art palatable for everybody, it leaves a weird taste in everybody's mouth, if that makes sense. It would be nicer. Like, think about it like this. I love pizza, right? When I go to a pizza restaurant, I expect the pizza from the specific pizza restaurant to be really good, because that's their job. They make pizza, I don't go there expecting to get a souffle or to get a burger. I'm at the pizza restaurant. When I go to a more generic restaurant that does lots of different things, I don't expect the pizza to be as good as the pizza restaurant down the road. And I think Ubisoft, they're kind of like that generic restaurant, It's like, yeah, they will have food that appeals to everybody, but the food overall isn't going to be as good as a specialized restaurant that specializes in that one specific thing. And I think, yeah, and I think, if they do need to crack down on actually specializing on what people want their games to be once again, and they will do well. They will. Well, it's hard to say if they will, but that's the thing. They won't do well under this current leadership because Yves Guillemot and the Guillemot family don't seem to see this, And I neglected to mention this. It's not a massive point, but Vantage Studios, the new heads of Assassin's Creed, going ahead, which is majorly owned by Tencent. This the whole thing that we talked about. Yves Guillemot selected his son, Charlie Guillemot, to run this. He's just chosen his son to give his son a handout. There's nothing... Look, it's good supporting family. If you can give your family good opportunities, then you should do that, obviously. But that's the whole issue with Ubisoft that's been going on for years and years and years, and it's happening once again. Yves Guillemot saying, look, I'm not going to pick the person who's really right for this job. I'm going to pick you because you're my son, And maybe his son has what it takes. But all the evidence suggests he don't know what he's doing. He has had crypto projects that have absolutely failed in the past. They're online. Go check them out. Just ask ChatGPT about Charlie Guillemot and what he's done. He's also He was running, or I guess spearheading, if you will, a Tom Clancy mobile game. Now, the terrorist organization, as part of the story of that Tom Clancy game, their logo was the Black Lives Matter fist. You know, like they had that as the terrorist organization logo. Like, how silly do you have to be to approve that? To not think. So look, he's in charge of he's in charge of Assassin's Creed now. So we'll see. We'll see. I heard a rumor Ezio is in Hexe. Personally, I hope that doesn't happen, but I feel like he should be left alone. What do you think? Yeah. I think any new inclusion of Ezio is scary. It's shaky waters because Ezio is iconic. He's legendary. Um, in Assassin's Creed, we love him, and it's like, who's gonna write his dialogue? Who's gonna write that? Are they gonna understand Ezio as a character? If it's Darby McDevitt, right, narrative director of Hexe, well, Darby made, in my opinion, the best Assassin's Creed story, which is Revelations, or one of the best. I would trust him with Ezio. It just depends whether the story calls for it, you know? If anyone's going to add Ezio again into an AC game, it's Darby. So, at least it's him doing it. So, you know, maybe it works. Maybe it works. It's just, it's going to have to make sense, right? It's going to have to make sense in a way that we say, oh, okay, I can see that Ezio did this between Brotherhood and Revelations, because there is a couple years between Brotherhood and Revelations. I don't imagine he'd be doing much traveling after he came back to Italy after Revelations, because that was like his last big pilgrimage. So how does he end up in Germany or wherever? I don't know. We're gonna have to see. It might even be like an Isu thing, where somebody actually eavesdrops on his final speech to Desmond from across the world. That would be really cool. Like, you know, at the end of Revelations, I won't give spoilers just in case, but like the end of Revelations when Ezio enters the room that he enters with the piece of Eden that he has, or he finds, and he gives a speech, an iconic speech. You know, what if somehow someone else had a piece of Eden that was able to sort of tap into that, and they witnessed that and they were like, what? At the same time. Like, that would be a good way of incorporating Ezio into the game without actually having him directly impact that story. Don't know. I mean, again, I think if Darby's writing the story, I think the overall story will be decent. So far I trust him. So I don't know. We'll see. Yerba says, "I'm afraid that classic." Oh, by the way, Yerba, I did see you say I'm good. How about yourself? I just didn't get to it. I am very good. Thank you for asking. Um, and you also say, "I'm afraid that classic style AC will sell even worse unless it's so innovative and good that people who never cared for AC will buy it." It's hard to say. It's hard to say. I think you would have to change it a little bit. I think people, you know, a lot of people that will buy and play Assassin's Creed are like teenagers, and I think a lot of teenagers now who were like babies when the Ezio games came out, maybe the gaming palette has changed. You know, maybe the gameplay formula of the old ACs is a little bit too outdated for a lot of people, and you don't really want to make a game that feels like it came from 2010 like now, do you? You want to make it feel modern. So I think if they were to make a linear style Assassin's Creed game like the older games, yeah, they could do the overall, you know, formula of a city with viewpoints, with side content that leads into the main story, most importantly, with the sequence structuring and stuff like that, and obviously a in-depth parkour system. But I think they would have to innovate a little bit, make it feel a bit more modern by doing something new. And that's the thing. I think Ubisoft, again, they're too scared to actually try something new. So it's hard to see what they would do there. Again, hopefully, Hexe is this game. Hexe hopefully is this classic Assassin's Creed experience from a mainline studio and the guys that made the OGs. Hopefully, but probably not. Probably not. But I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. I think if it was done well, like a classic style AC, it would do well. I mean, Mirage was on paper that, and it did well enough. Um, it depends. I mean, there is such a big audience of Assassin's Creed players now that came in with like Odyssey, and when they think Assassin's Creed, they think massive 100-hour game, massive open world, and those people will despise the smaller games. They won't really appreciate it, I don't think. Just like for me, I don't really appreciate the bigger ones in the same way. So whatever you do, you're always sacrificing one side of the audience. When you leave a series going for so long and you split that audience so much by changing your game so much, by having vastly different games in the same series than what you used to, you split that fan base for enjoyers of the older style and enjoyers of the newer style, you're going to disappoint somebody every single time. So I guess at this point, they just sort of weigh up the options. Well, like, how many fans do we have of the older style? How many fans do we have of the newer style? Well, we have more fans of the newer style, so we'll just keep making those. That's kind of the mentality. But again, being in a shaky situation, business-wise, it might mean that they take a few more risks. I don't know. I ordered pizza and got AC Shadows. Worst day of my life. What, today? Or when it came out last year? I mean, what do you mean you ordered pizza? Oh, I'm an idiot. I'm such an idiot. You're referencing my thing I just spent 5 minutes going on about. Yeah, that's the thing. You order pizza and you get AC Shadows. This is what I'm afraid of. Maybe I'm too pessimistic about it. For some reason, I have that feeling that old AC days are long gone, as well as all older players. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I mean, as much as I say what I hope Hexe is going to be, I don't think it's going to be that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think it will be a classic style AC game, not in the way that maybe we want it to be. Whether that's better or worse, we'll have to see. I don't really hold out much hope for Ubisoft games overall. Well, I have no hope for any Ubisoft game outside of Assassin's Creed. Obviously, I have more of a connection to Assassin's Creed because my whole YouTube career is basically revolved around it. And obviously, I grew up loving Assassin's Creed, so I have that connection. Um, but if I was not as invested in Assassin's Creed as I have been like my whole life, I wouldn't care at all about Ubisoft. I think, oh yeah, they're another EA. You know what I mean? They're just, who cares? It's just got that investment emotionally, and I suppose. Um, so I don't think the type of Assassin's Creed game I like is gonna come back ever. But to be honest, but that's fine. Like at a certain point, you make your peace with it, and you say, okay, that's fine. I've still got my AC games that I love. They're never gonna go anywhere, and like they're infinitely replayable because I love them so much. As I said, I just finished AC Revelations, which I'm obviously gonna make a video about on the Exile Extra. But I just made a video about it. I'm sorry, I just played them, and they're just as enjoyable the 25th time round, probably more. I've probably played them more than that at this point. They're just as good. And each time you play it, you sort of understand it a bit more. You see different things you didn't notice before, and it's just a good time. We'll never lose those games that we love. It's just maybe we won't get any more. Maybe not. So yeah, but it's okay. Again, you get to the point where you stop grieving for Assassin's Creed and you start appreciating it for what it actually is slash was. Jorm D Worm, yes, my guy. I haven't seen you in ages, bro. How you doing? Are my eyes deceiving me? He says. An Exile live stream. I don't think I have seen one in quite a while. How are you doing, brother? Yeah, I remember months ago, like when I went. Well, I suppose a couple of years ago at this point, when I used to like live stream like every week. You would join a lot of the time, Jorm, but then a lot of the time as well, you would just miss them. Like I remember I'd get a comment and you'd be like, "Oh, bro, I just missed it." But yeah, I barely ever stream anymore. But like, I'm gonna try and do it a little bit more. If my idea of how it works does all right, we'll keep it going. But I'm very good, thank you. It's good to see you back in the comments, Jorm. I think at this point you have been a commenter of my channels for like longer than any of my other commenters. You know, I remember when I first started my channel in like 2023. Um, top commenters were like, and this is when I had like less than 1,000 subs. I'm pretty sure. I think top commenters was you, Jorm. It was a guy called Ashi. I remember his name because he used to comment on every video, and then one day he just disappeared and he never commented again. But I still remember him. I have no idea what happened to him. Maybe he just changed his YouTube name and he still comments. I don't know. But I remember it was you and this guy called Ashi. It was you two, Ghost Warrior as well. He's still about. But you guys were the top commenters, and you're still here, man. You're still here. So I appreciate your support. And yeah, you've seen a lot of live streams. You've seen a lot. And you've seen another one today. Dan says, I've really found AC1 to Revelations has aged like a fine wine for me as well. Played them a few months ago and still a great experience. Yeah, exactly. I think they're a lot easier to play when you grew up with them, or like you just played them when they came out. They're a lot easier to still appreciate. I do think it's probably harder for people that are a bit younger that didn't really grow up with them to then go back and play those. Some can, I'm sure. Rip Oh, Hidden One, how you doing, man? How you doing? Rip Ashy, I honestly don't remember them though. When you said that for a minute, I like thought that you knew them and they died. I was gonna get really sad. No, just they were. I literally remember this Ashy person was always in my comments and had like the profile picture was like, that like anime, like I don't know what it's from, but it's like a meme where like he's holding the butterfly like that. That was his image or their image. But they disappeared one day, and then you became my top commenter. Yeah, I do think, as I said, at a certain age range, maybe the older AC games are a lot harder to get into. I think a good example in my own life is my cousin, who is, well, he's like nearly 20. He's only, well, he's like 6 years, almost 6 years younger than me. So he's not that much younger than me, but like when he was like 11 or something, AC Odyssey was the game. When I was 11, it was Revelations. It's vastly different games. And he has gone back since after my recommendations and played like AC1, AC2, and he likes them, but he couldn't really get into them like we love them. But he did like Odyssey, do you know what I mean? And he did really like AC3 actually. But again, it feels a bit more modern, I suppose, than the older games. He just couldn't really get into the OGs. And I just think it's got to be an age thing. You're a little kid. When you're a little kid, you play certain games, and you can go back and play those ones you played as a little kid. But maybe it's harder to go even further back. Kind of works for me as well. I grew up playing like Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, early 2000s games. What is this gameplay? Is it just been me on the menu for ages? Yeah, I grew up playing like KOTOR, Jack and Daxter, all early 2000s games like that, and I can go back and play them all the time. I'm actually replaying KOTOR now. Not right now. I'm not playing it right now. Obviously, I'm streaming, but like I'm playing it at the moment, and I can because I grew up with them and I understand those games and I enjoy that era of gaming. Probably because I was a little kid at the time. It's nostalgic. And because it's nostalgic, you can then still appreciate what is actually there. Whereas I can't really go back and play 90s video games. They're just a bit too old for me to really like. They're just a bit too outdated. Do you know what I mean? So maybe it's the same, just not a generation, but like a gaming generation later. That being said, though, I really do think the older AC games are like better in quality, in like story writing, in gameplay. I think there is more substance to it, and again, it appeals to. Maybe that's just so subjective, though. Maybe that is just what I think. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I don't think I'm wrong, but like maybe, like I'm trying to put myself in the. This is what's going to be really good when we get. I don't know if you guys know AC Johnny. He's like a AC. He's an Assassin's Creed TikToker, and he's like branching out to YouTube a bit at the moment. And we're gonna try and get him on the podcast because I think it would be really good to have a perspective of somebody that prefers the later games, doesn't like the older games as much. Complete opposite to me. I would love to have that conversation and understand the point of view, because I don't. There's no point in people saying, "Oh, the older ones are better. Oh, the newer ones are better." It's better just to actually listen and understand why people like the ones they like, and then sort of think, "Oh, well, you know." Hidden One says Revelations gameplay on the side is hitting me in the feels. Yeah, man, such a good game. It is such a good game. When I replayed it recently, I mean, I've always loved Revelations, but I did forget how good the story is. Such a good story, and it's so good to see Ezio being more nuanced when it comes to like his character writing and stuff. Because like he's a great character in AC2 and Brotherhood, but he doesn't talk about the philosophy of the creed and stuff like that. Whereas when he actually does talk about that in Revelations, it's like, oh, he's like mirroring Altair in so many ways as well. Such a good game. I'm gonna save that for my video though, that I need to record. So good. And honestly, look at that like end game armor. I think it looks good in Revelations. Like a lot of people say, oh, when you buy all the different armors as you get further in the game in like the Ezio games, the armor just like obstructs the robes. But like I think the whatever armor that's called, it's the one you get like the last strongest piece of armor aside from like the Ishak Pasha robes. I think it looks sick. Adds like a little cape. It's cool. What am I doing there? I'm trying to collect the. I was going around collecting the memory shards or whatever, and I couldn't find my way up. And then it wasn't up anyway. Anyway, um, Dan says that's very true. To be fair, the Ezio games still feel revolutionary for me, but I can see why a younger person wouldn't feel the same. Yeah. Yerba says I grew up playing Prince of Persia, so I got used to. When I lean this way? Am I like out of shot? No, I'm not. Sorry. I grew up playing Prince of Persia, but I got so used to Ubisoft abandoning their best IPs before I played my first AC. I'm exactly your age, by the way. Yeah, that's the thing. I think if we, it doesn't matter where we are in the world. If we all sort of grew up at the same time and played these AC games and these Ubisoft games, we all kind of feel the same way, mostly, I think. But then again, you do have outliers as well, like going back to AC Johnny. Um, Obviously, again, if he does come on the podcast, he can talk to us more about it, how he is about it, and this is my outside perception of him, which could be wrong, but it seems that he does much prefer the newer Assassin's Creed games and the current Ubisoft formula more than he does the older ones, even though I think he grew up with them, and I think he's around the same age as us. So it's interesting. It's interesting. I think that also not defines, but like I think it also depends on what type of games you like to play now, as well. Um, I say that, but I'm a massive RPG fan. I think the reason I don't really like the RPG formula, all the reasons we've already talked about, but I think just when it comes down to it, the idea of an RPG Assassin's Creed game just doesn't work for me, because I always grew up playing these big RPGs, like playing Skyrim loads, playing Oblivion, playing the KOTOR games, I don't know, whatever else. Witcher 3. And then when an AC game came out, I was like, oh, thank goodness, I've got a small game, my annual game that I can just play. It doesn't take that long, it takes a few weeks. It's refreshing, it's chill. I can play a smaller game and then I can go back into my big RPGs. That was always my mentality with Assassin's Creed. So when they then went into also making them as long as a Witcher 3, I was like, oh, God, where's the time? So I guess it depends on what you want Assassin's Creed to be as well, you know? From someone like AC Johnny, or just generally someone that grew up with the older games but does prefer the newer games now in Assassin's Creed, they might. It depends what they want out of Assassin's Creed. Maybe when they were playing the older games growing up, they thought, "Oh, imagine if this was like a big role playing game instead of a action adventure." I don't think anyone was thinking that back then, but maybe they did. So then when it did happen, they latched onto it. I don't know. I don't know. Yerba says, "What's your favorite RPG besides Baldur's Gate 3?" Ooh, The Witcher 3. I love The Witcher 3. I'm gonna start playing it again soon because according to like the internet and leaks and stuff, apparently there might be another DLC expansion that's gonna like tie into The Witcher 4. So it's like if that's gonna happen in like summer, I need a complete playthrough to go on to that, you know? So I'm gonna start it all again for like the fifth time. But I haven't played it in like 4 years, so it'll be good. Um, what else do I like? What other RPGs do I like? Oh, again, Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2. That's if you can get behind um a 2003 game, you know, graphically, and you can get behind combat that is not the best, you will have a really good story. It's such a good story, and it makes you see Star Wars in such a different way. And they're just good RPGs. They are decent RPGs. It's just the combat takes a lot of getting used to. Here's a cheat code, literally, to enjoy these games more. I don't care how people play their games. I don't judge. If you have it on PC, which is the only way to play these games, do not play KOTOR 1 or 2 on Xbox because KOTOR 1 you have to get the widescreen patch, otherwise you're playing it in a box. And then if you get KOTOR 2, you're literally missing half the game unless you play it on PC because there was a load of cut content. But then there's a mod that that basically fixed all of that cut content, brings it back into the game and makes it what the game is. So you have to play on PC. But if you do, you can edit the INI files and add literally console commands equals one, or like game commands equals one, something like that. Look it up. You save that, and then you can do console commands. Type in turbo, makes you run really fast, because the movement in the game is quite slow. And then type in invulnerability, and then you have God mode. I don't care how you play your games. You know, it's not much of a challenge, but I think the combat is what turns so many people off of that game. So if you just eliminate that problem, you've got a really good game. I do recommend it. Hidden One says KCD 2 for me is the greatest RPG of all time. But The Witcher 3 is my favorite game of all time. I haven't played the KCD games. I really need to play them. I really need to play them. It's been so long. Um, I will. I will play them. They're big time commitments. I've got a big list of games I need to play, and they are on the list. But I don't know if I'm going to get to them this year, realistically, because I've got The Witcher 3 to replay. If just in case that DLC is a thing, I've got Expedition. I haven't even finished that. I barely started it, so I've got to finish that. Obviously, I've got to make time for Fable if it comes out, and then if GTA 6 really does come out, I need time for that. I got a big list of games, and like I want to play the older BioWare games I never played. I haven't even played the Mass Effect games, and I've just got the Legendary Edition with all three games that I really want to play. And what I like about these older BioWare games, from what I've heard, is very similar to KOTOR in the fact that they're only like 40 hours. They're not like 100-hour stories, and I want that. I don't want to be playing 100 hours every game because I won't have time. And that's another thing with the KOTOR games. They're not too big of a time commitment. Um, Stefan says, I know it's maybe not a classic RPG, but I like Elden Ring a lot. Yeah, I mean, I've never played a Souls-like game. I've never played Elden Ring. I know. Uncultured swine that I am. I need to play them. I will. The closest thing I've played to a Dark Souls or Elden Ring type of game is Star Wars Jedi Knight and Survivor. Not Jedi Knight. Star Wars Jedi. Oh my god, I'm blanking on the first game's name. Oh my god. What? Oh, Fallen Order. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order and Survivor. Those are the closest gameplay that I've been to a Souls-like game, which probably isn't that close, but I've heard it kind of is. How long have we been going? Let's have a look. Let's have a look. We've been going 85 minutes, 67. It's like an hour 30, whatever it is. I'm just thinking, what can we talk about? What do we want to talk about? I kind of want to do a should you play in named AC game in 2026. Kind of want to talk about something like that. That could be cool. Like a and then if I do clip it, hopefully it'll be a good video. Maybe I'll do that next week on the stream. I love Fallen Order and Survivor. It's basically Prince of Persia mixed with Dark Souls and Star Wars. Yeah, in Star Wars, yeah. Yeah, it does have very Prince of Persia feeling movement, to be fair. Like wall running, the way you like swing on beams and stuff does feel quite similar. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, I never really thought about it like that. It's obvious. It's right there. Yeah. Yeah. What am I doing in this gameplay right now? I'm running. I'm climbing. I'm hook blading my way up. There's a guard. Send a... Oh no, did a crossbow. Oh. Is there anything else we want to get into? I think we've got time for maybe one more medium-sized topic. We've talked about Ubisoft. We've talked about Assassin's Creed in 2026 when it comes to like looking back and how we see things. We've talked about Hexe. What else do we want to talk about? I really don't have much to say about the Black Flag remake, to be honest. I don't have enough to give you for that because I've talked about it too much and nothing much has changed, So, what do you think about the what do you think about AC Black Flag remake? just saw your chat after I said that. I really don't know what to say about it anymore because I've made videos about it, We'll get it when we get it. I'm not interested in it because in no world do I see it being anything like the older game. I just see it being an Odyssey type of game, and I that's not what I really want to play. But I mean, they'll if it ever comes out, there will be people that like it, and those people will have more to say than I do. What is Hexe about? I mean, we don't really know yet. We just saw a trailer, didn't we? When Ubisoft am I right in thinking they showed yeah, they announced Mirage or they showed the CG trailer for it. And then like an hour later in the same like Ubisoft event, they showed Assassin's Creed Codename Red. You remember when Shadows was called that? And it was like the ninja that jumped up onto the roof and did the hidden blade. They showed that, and then they showed Assassin's Creed Codename Hexe. So it's gonna have a different name. It's not gonna be called Assassin's Creed Hex or Hexe. Why do I say Hexe? I heard somebody say it once, and I just always called it Hexe, but it probably is just Hex, isn't it? So supposedly it's during the like German witch trials, I believe, which I don't really know much about, but it is an interesting time period. Um, but that's just stuff that we've picked up on, I believe, from the trailer itself, because there was like runes, people were deciphering them. It was ages ago now. I'd have to remind myself what actually happens. But that's all we know. And then Ubisoft said like it's going to be more linear. Kind of broadly said that. They didn't really explain how. So we'll have to wait and see. Anyone says, do you want Ubisoft to give reassurance that something AC is still happening because literally nothing is confirmed at all? I mean, I don't care. I don't care really. The question is, do you? Do you? I'm just thinking. No, not really. I don't really. The thing is, I just don't really. I'm not too bothered because I'm not really planning to play any of the later AC games as it comes anyway. Um, I've got so many other games I want to play this year. I'm not too bothered. You know, I'm not gonna play the Black Flag remake unless it's pretty much just a classic style Assassin's Creed game remade to feel and look better. Then I'm not really gonna be that interested. Um, I would be. To be honest, I am interested to see what Hex is gonna be because again, we know Darby McDevitt is the narrative director, and so that sparks a lot of curiosity for me because again, he did Revelations, he did Black Flag, he did Valhalla. Say what you will about Valhalla, but like when it's good, it's good. So I would be I would be curious to see what that's like. But if it is just a classic UB slop as they say, then I'm not really, you know. The live stream where they showed Hex was 2022. Yeah, yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? It's crazy. I wonder why they did that. Do you think it was more of like a casting call, as you will, like we're gonna make this, so guys, join our team. You know what I mean? Because a lot of the time, trailers and stuff, like if they are so many years before release, I think a lot of the time people do it because they want like the talent to come. They want to encourage people, talented people, to come and work for them, work on this game. And again, like investors as well. It's like, look, invest in us because we're gonna make this insanely good game. Um, so I do wonder how far that game really was along at that point, and I wonder how far along it is now. You know, it's weird to think like somewhere out there in the world, well, I guess in Montreal. I guess if you go, like the actual city of Montreal, somewhere in that city, there is a working build of the next AC game, like Hex. Like it's there, right? I mean, it's got to be. If it was originally coming out at the end of the year, like there's got to be a game that someone can play right now. Whether it's polished, that's another story. But it's just weird to think, you know. You can say it for like any game though. Like Elder Scrolls 6 is existing on somebody's hard drive right now. That's so weird. Do you know what I mean? The Prince of Persia remake is probably finished on somebody's hard drive, and Ubisoft probably went, delete that. God. Black Flag remake, I haven't heard people talk about the difference between graphics or art style. I mean, I think that's because it's hard to, you can't really talk about that until we see it. We don't know what it's going to be. We don't know if the graphics or art style is going to be the same or it's going to be completely different. Like, we're just going to have to wait and see. and then when we do see it, we can start to talk about that. I guess. Hidden One says on a few LinkedIn profiles, you can see Hexe devs listing things like adding side quests and working on the southern side of the open world map. So who knows if it's a linear or open world anymore? Yeah, I know, right? It depends what they mean by linear, you know? Do they just mean the main story is more linear, so you don't have loads of targets on a board? Do they just mean that? Because in that case, Origins was linear, which it was, but it still had a insanely huge open world with like side quests and this and that. You know, like it wasn't like a linear Assassin's Creed game what we think when we hear that word. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know. I'm currently playing Valhalla for the first time and going into DLCs, and they really wasted Basim. He had so much potential. Yeah, I guess. Oh, I mean, yeah, he did, and he still does. Um, how are you finding playing it for the first time? Are you enjoying it? I'm guessing. Does that mean you finished the main story and now you're doing the DLCs? I didn't play the Wrath of the Druids one. It didn't really appeal to me when it came out, but I did play the Siege of Paris, and as much as I thought the story and NPCs were just nothing, the black box missions were actually quite fun. And I did enjoy that. I did enjoy that. I hope it's Hidden says I hope it's similar style to Unity slash Syndicate in that it's smaller open world. Oh, sorry, it's smaller open ended map, but the story is linear. Yeah. Jorm says the story should just be linear. The choose your own. Sorry, I can't. It's just small on my screen. Choose your own region to explore. Narratives just don't work and make them feel like side quests. I agree. Or it could work, but not when Ubisoft writes it. No, I think you can do. I think AC1 is the perfect example of having non-linear targets, but still in a linear fashion and it working. I think you can do that, but it has to be certain segments that are linear, but aren't linear to the grand scale of the rest of the game. Because in Assassin's Creed 1, you still had character development, you still had Altair, furthering what he was learned, his beliefs and what he learned through the course of the game. Because you had three targets at a time. Yeah, you could go to each city in the order of your choice during that memory block and assassinate them, but it was those three targets at a time that taught Altair a specific thing, and then when it went to the next memory block or between that, he furthered his understanding in very linear moments that explored that. Does that make sense? So you couldn't do one of the last three targets before one of the first three, because by the time Altair got to the last three targets, the way he'd perceived his enemies and the world and his mission was so different because he had to get to that point. Whereas in Shadows, for example, you've got a wheel of targets. You can choose that one, or you can choose that one, or you can choose that one at the beginning of the game, or you can choose any of them at the end of the game. Do you know what I mean? You can do them in any order. So what happens is you can't get any character development from this. You can't actually have any cause and effect to the world at large. Think again about Assassin's Creed 1 when Altair assassinates Garnier. Not the shampoo, but the man. He was a doctor, and basically he was like torturing disabled people. He was on surface value, he was like doing awful things to like disabled people and stuff like that. And like he was really brutal, and the way he was doing it was awful. Absolutely no human rights there. But when you assassinate your target, he reveals that actually he was using the Piece of Eden to give them a better life, to basically, I don't really know how this works, it doesn't really make much sense, but he was basically like making them not disabled, which is kind of okay. But he was doing that, right? With the Piece of Eden. He was allowing people that were homeless, had no hope in life, to become like soldiers and make a living. And you know, that was good. But the way he was doing it was really, really bad. He was taking them against their will. He was like beating them up. They literally broke a guy who tried to escape's legs. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, that's not the way to do it. What I'm saying is the cause and effects. That's what I was trying to get to. After you kill that target, there are loads more homeless people, special needs people on the street. You know, the guys who go, I'm not actually going to impersonate a special needs person. That's a bad idea. But the people that, like, they punch you like that if you go too near to them. When I was a kid, I thought that was drunk people. I'm pretty sure it's disabled people. But you know what I mean? Like, they're all on the streets at that point, and you see the world change to your actions. In Shadows, you cannot do that because anything that happens can happen at the beginning of the game, the middle of the game, or the end of the game, depending on which order you choose to take down each target. So then anything happens has to happen in a small vacuum. So you can't have character development because you can't have Naoe or Yasuke furthering their character based on an understanding they've gained from that target, because I'm kind of just going in circles the way I'm saying it, just like Shadows. Because if you do it at the beginning of the game, and then you were to kill a target that you could actually do at the end of the game, the way Yasuke or Naoe would react to the next target would have to be affected by the one before. So let's say, for example, Naoe takes someone out, and that person reveals a truth or sort of sorts to them that actually, or just put Naoe and Garnier's situation in AC1. She takes out somebody that was hurting people. The person hurting people says, actually, yeah, it was hurting them, but I was actually trying to help them. And actually, I'm not as evil as you think. And then she thinks, oh, wow, I'm wrong about the Katsubishu Iki or whatever they were called. I know that was the assassins. I'm wrong about the bad guys. I actually am starting to see it a little bit differently. So then when you choose another target, she would have to speak with them and react to them in a very specific way based on what she just learned. Again, when you can do any target in any order, you can't do that. She has to react in a very generic way that makes sense for any order. And then in turn, you have a character that doesn't really go anywhere, doesn't really learn much, doesn't really change, doesn't really progress. You have a very stagnant character that has to talk in a very binary way, just like, yeah, I'm going to go there, yeah, I'm going to do that, you're bad, I'm good, haha. You know, you can't do more than that because it has to fit in a non-linear style. Yes. Your thoughts? Oh, the real Zephyrus. How we doing, man? You're like, aren't you big on Twitter? I swear you are. Didn't know you knew who I was. I'm pretty sure I see your posts. But hello, nice to see you. Yeah, I think I explained that okay, but I think I also went in circles a little bit there, so I hope you guys understood what I meant, or what I was trying to say. Stefan says, I played the main story only, and I really like the Isu stuff and combat. Are we talking about AC1 here? Which one are we talking about? But stealth is a bad... I can't even read, bro. I need to zoom in. Zoom in. There we go. I can see it now. So you like the combat and the Isu, but the stealth was really bad, and the story in the middle was weird when Eivor didn't save Sigurd immediately when he was tortured. Yeah, that's the thing. That's crazy. There's so much bloat in AC Valhalla, and it would, I think, if there wasn't all that bloat and like side story arcs, it would have been such a better game, and it would be so much more replayable if it was just a shorter game. The length of it and the bloat of it like puts me off wanting to play it again. And that's a game I actually didn't have a bad time playing. It's just knowing how much there is, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have to marry like Alfred, or not Alfred. There was some guy I had to marry to somebody and officiate the marriage, and then there was that whole Halloween mask thing, and I can't be bothered. I just want the AC storage, you know what I mean? He says, but I liked it more than Odyssey. Yeah, yeah. But Origins is still the best in the RPG series. Honestly, I need to do my job properly and play Origins again, because it's been so long since I played it, and I can't really say anything about it because it's just been so long since I played it, And if I say, yeah, it's really good, or yeah, it's really bad, or you know, yeah, I like this part, it would not be true because it would be basing it off a really bad memory I have of it. I mean, I've played it like 3 times. It's just I haven't played it for years, so I need to play it, and then I can give my thoughts on Origins. Um, like I did a video ages ago, and I was talking about Origins, and I was like, yeah, and like, may I say, Origins is masterfully written. And then like I listen back to that, and I think, yeah, but I don't actually know that because I don't remember. So I'm just saying the general consensus. I shouldn't do that, which I don't do anymore, by the way. Yeah, maybe it is, but is it? I don't know. I need to replay and see. When was the last time Assassin's Creed was morally complex? Does Ubisoft have faith in its audience to feel? Do you know, I will get to that, but I've just realized I think my gameplay has just looped like 3 times. Shall I change it? How do I change it? Let me change it. Let's go for some. Let's go. I've got Brotherhood game. I'm on a different hard drive right now, and I've only got Brotherhood gameplay here. So let's do that. Let's play some Brotherhood, or watch it. I've got one here called Side Stuff. That's what I'll play. Side content. There we go. That's just gonna be like me running around doing stuff. Something to watch. It didn't even. Oh look, it's the game. It's the game. Oh, it's the Xbox logo. Oh, we'll just go for it. So sorry, what were you saying? When was the last time Assassin's Creed was morally complex? Does Ubisoft have faith in its audience to feel multiple ideals to something bad? Let me unpack what you're saying there. Right. You're saying do Ubisoft have faith in that for their audience to be able to like understand it? I suppose you're saying to be able to take a Templar ideology and an assassin ideology and see, yeah. No, I don't think they do. I don't think they care though. I don't think they. That's not the story they're really interested in telling. I think Darby McDevitt, again, Hex narrative director. I think he will have something of interest to want to explore with that. But I think as a company, they're not bothered. It's more. It's less. Let's approach a nuanced story, and it's more. Let's approach microtransactions with no nuance and sell them, make some money. You know. And again, when they want to appeal to a really broad audience, there isn't much room for nuance, is there? You know? Oh look, the multiplayer cutscene, sick. Vidic on his thing, telling everyone about multiplayer, and then multiplayer just didn't work. I'll skip along. There we go. Where are we? Hey, did a quest. Hang on. There we go. We'll leave it there. The Mirage DLC actually did a good job on that. I agree. You guys know what I think about like modern AC, but the Value of Memory DLC is so good. Like it was the first Assassin's Creed, and that's the thing. Like there will be small bits of Assassin's Creed that are good in the future. It's just very few and far between, and it's just unpredictable. But yeah, the Value of Memory DLC was so good. Just a really good piece of Assassin's Creed content that you can play and get something out of. It was really good, really good. So much so that I want to replay it again at some point. It's only 4 hours, so it shouldn't take too long. Dan says, I find playing Valhalla you have to play it on easy and skip unnecessary dialogue. Save loads of time on gameplay and you can enjoy better parts of the story, but I shouldn't have to do that. That's the thing. That's a good way to play it, but it's unfortunate that Ubisoft make a game that forces you to do that to enjoy it, you know? You shouldn't have to. But yeah, no, that sounds like a decent idea. I've been saying for like a few years now. I don't know. I'm no modder. I don't know how to mod. So I don't know whether this would even be possible. But I always said a really good, great mod that would make me want to play Valhalla. It would allow me to play Valhalla again and again. Would be to take all the filler arcs out of the game. Like when you finish a main arc of Valhalla that is like to do with the main story, the Sigurd, Basim, Eivor stuff that is imperative to the story. You finish an arc of that, it skips the Gloucestershire arc or something, and it comes up with the next arc that is actually to do with the main story. If there's a mod, or if there ever is a mod that could take that stuff out and leave the stuff of substance, it would make like a 30-hour story or something, but it would be so much better. And it would still feel cohesive because that's really the main story. Yeah, I mean, gameplay wise, it might feel a bit like, oh, this is a bit weird because you'd probably have to go through regions that you never went to actually get to the next bit. But it would still be easier and better, I think. I would love a mod like that. But Google told me that that mod does not exist, unfortunately. It would be so good. If anyone knows stuff about modding, can you tell me if that's possible? Because I feel like to the mainstream modding community that like that's just not something modders would like think to do maybe or care to do for Valhalla. I feel like it's very much a in deep Assassin's Creed fan would want that mod. And is there an AC modder that is that in deep with the story to want to do that? Do you know what I mean? Is that why it doesn't exist, or does it not exist because you just can't repurpose the game in that way? I don't know. Have you played AC Chronicles? Do you know why people hate Chronicles Russia? I always consider it to be the best AC spin-off alongside Bloodlines, and it seems I'm the only one who likes it. To be honest, I can't say on that because I've not played them. I've played the beginning of the Chronicles China, but like barely got through the beginning level. And that's not because I didn't like it. I just haven't got chance to properly get into it. I do own them on Steam though, so at some point I will play them. But I can't tell you why people don't like that one because I haven't played it. I do know the story of it though. Nikolai Orlov and Anastasia. No, not Anastasia. Was it Anastasia or it was Anna Anderson? Who's Anastasia? I don't know. Anna Anderson or whatever she was called. Um, yeah. I think I may I may log off for now. I think that was a good stream today. I think we got through a good amount. I think we had a good time. What should I do? When I do my next stream, should I do it on this channel or should I do it on the Exile Extra? I just don't know where to stream it because I don't know. I wonder if I should do it on this. I think I might do it on the main channel streams because if I decide to clip some of these into like videos or whatever, I think it would be a good idea to then do that on another channel so it doesn't get seen as like duplicate content. So maybe I should do that. I should stream here and if I do clip it on the Exile Extra. Yeah, I might do that. Oh, by the way, if you haven't checked out already, I'm gonna go in a minute, so I'm just gonna say this now. If you haven't checked out already, the most recent episode of the Podyssey, an Assassin's Creed podcast with me, the Exile, and my friend Willis Makes Movies, we have just released this week's episode. Again, it's the Ubisoft situation, but you know, we talk about it in a different way. Obviously, we get Willis Makes Movies thoughts as well. We also talk about like the future of the Podyssey and the future of Assassin's Creed and where it might go, where we see Ubisoft in like 5 years. It's an interesting conversation, and also we do have a good time. We just have a laugh. We have good vibes, and then we react to some funny clips at the end. So check it out if you haven't checked it out already. Um, if you want, obviously, more of me yapping, that's where you can get it. I think I'm gonna go. Yeah, I think I'll sign out there. I need a drink. My throat is sore from so much talking. Like, you sat down at home right now. Imagine if you were doing this much talking just for 2 hours. Like, it's fine. It's fine. It's fun. But it's like my throat is sore now. I need a drink. Anyway, nice to see you guys. I will see you soon. See you later, Dan. Nice to see you. See you, Punk Dallas, Yerba. Jorm, my Jorm, if you're still there. Goodbye, Jorm. Goodbye, everybody. I don't know who's still here, so I'll just say see you in a bit. Maybe next week I'll stream again. Maybe I will. Maybe I will. I'll let you guys know. I'll do a community post. Check my community posts. If you turn notifications on my channel with the bell, you'll know when I go live again in advance. So if you want to see more from me live, yeah, check it out. If you're somehow new to me or you only came from my shorts or something, the Exile live streams will be here. Shorts will also be here. The Exile Extra is where I do my long form Assassin's Creed discussion videos, that sort of thing. And then obviously the Podyssey, the Assassin's Creed podcast. And then I have Players Pad, which is like Elder Scrolls videos, other RPGs, which is a completely different audience, but I'll shout it out. Alright, love you guys. Take care. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you do well. And I'll see you soon. Bye.